All right, the president making it official that it is a big win in the House last night by a vote of 228 to 206, with 13 Republicans voting yes, 6 Democrats, largely progressives, voting no. It got done. The infrastructure-only plan got done. Welcome news, no doubt, to my next guest, the Transportation Secretary of the United States, Pete Buttigieg. Secretary, good to see you.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
I do want to get into that whole thing, but I was concerned about your son. I know he came home from the hospital yesterday after, 3 weeks under medical care. I know some days on a ventilator. How's he doing now?
Very kind of you to ask. He's doing great. He and his sister are home with their other dad right now, and we're just so thankful for the love, the prayers, the support, and the really good medical attention that he got, that our family benefited from. You know, so many parents go through a terrifying time like that, and you just realize how parenting it's terror and joy at the same time. But pleased to share with you that they're both doing great right now.
No, that's good, because that's the kind of stuff that's important. So Penelope, she's okay. There were no problems. What was the problem with your son, if you can update me?
Yeah, so actually both of them were hospitalized with a respiratory virus, not COVID, but another one that if you or I got it, it would be like a cold. But if a premature child gets it, it's serious business. She got better, he got worse, and we went through something that wouldn't wish on any parent. But again, the best thing, the best news is they're home and they're doing great.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that. The Secretary, now the business at hand, and the President championing this measure, infrastructure-only measure. You know, 6 Democrats voted against this. They appear to be largely progressives who maybe this was a protest vote for them. So what did you make of that?
Well, first of all, I want to say we're proud of the bipartisan nature of the vote and the fact that Republicans and Democrats voted to push this through. Now, I know our party is famously a big tent party. We're not a command and control kind of party. Folks have very different, diverse opinions, which is part of why there was so much dialogue and such a process to get us to this point. And of course, a big process underway to push for that second part of the president's vision, the Build Back Better agenda. You know, my lane, obviously, is the transportation pieces. It's mostly the part that passed last night, but we're also very committed and very enthusiastic about getting the other part over the line, those tax credits for working families with children. That's going to put money in their pockets to help them raise kids and deal with costs. Free 3- and 4-year-old preschool, something I've heard politicians talking about for at least as long as I've been in politics. The measures to help loved ones who are elderly or with disabilities get care in their homes, and tax fairness to make sure that you never have a multi-billion-dollar corporation paying less in taxes than a firefighter or a teacher. These are things we believe in as well. I'm still holding out hope until the bell rings that at least some Republicans would be willing to vote for that, although we haven't seen any sign of that just yet. And taken together, these two packages represent a very big deal for the American economy and for American families.
Some of the moderates, or a good many of them, ended up voting for this. Do you have a feeling, Secretary, that they will vote for this larger spending package that is still being crafted?
Yeah, most of the moderates that I've talked to, the biggest thing that they're interested in is the fiscal side. Now, we have readouts coming back from the Joint Committee on Taxation, from third parties like Moody's Analytics, and other bodies, including our own analysis in the administration, pointing to how this package could serve to reduce the deficit. They're interested in more data coming in, particularly from the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office. But the bottom line is that Democrats, and I would like to believe at least some Republicans, share a sense that we need to prioritize making it easier and more affordable to raise a family in this country, making it easier to get health care, having a fairer tax code that rewards work, not wealth, and doing something about climate before it's too late. That's why the provisions in this bill have almost ridiculously high levels of support among the American public, and that ultimately is what we think will propel this through Congress and onto the president's desk.
It doesn't have, off the chart level of support among some moderates in your party. Joe Manchin comes to mind, Sinema. They've been told, we're told, Secretary, to sort of get in line and do this, but they're concerned about a price tag that seems to keep going up, and that they need to see a CBO, that is a Congressional Budget Office, score on this. That applies to a wide swath of politicians. before they commit to it? What do you think?
Again, the Joint Committee on Taxation has weighed in. We've got our numbers from the National Economic Council, but yeah, they're interested in seeing what the CBO has to say, and we understand that. We've been in dialogue with them and with so many in the Senate and in the House.
Well, they want to wait for that. That's what I mean to say, Secretary. They want to wait for that. What do you think?
Right, and as you saw, some of the moderates in the House also considered it very important to get those that CBO data as part of their confidence in supporting the rule that passed last night. So I guess what I'd say is part two is in the works, right? That's where you have these dollars. By the way, I also want to point out how important it is to recognize the economists who tell us that this Build Back Better vision will help with inflation, because we are worried about that pressure on prices. This helps get more people back to work, because so many people want to work, but they can't because they can't find and afford childcare. So that's part two. Part one that passed last night, that's where the moment the ink is dry from the president's signature, my department has a lot of work to do. We got to get those roads and bridges funded. We got to support the transit and rail projects that are out there, both thinking about passenger rail, which, as you know, the president, and for that matter, I believe in, but also that freight rail at a time when we're looking at all these concerns with our supply chains, ports and airports, not to mention the energy grid infrastructure, the broadband infrastructure that's so important in rural areas and underserved urban areas, and just getting lead out of our pipes. I mean, this is an investment. The reason I think we got that good bipartisan support is this truly is an investment that pays for itself, and we're ready to get cracking the moment that we have the official bill signed, sealed, and delivered.
All right, it's unlikely as things stand, but you're quite right, that could change. I bet there'll be bipartisan support for this bigger spending package. You mentioned economists, sir. Obviously, they're not all on the same page. Some argue this is going to be quite inflationary. Goldman Sachs and Merrill Lynch and a host of other firms that worry about just that. And then that some have even gone so far to say that this approach and still pushing for this bigger spending package after the contest in Virginia, New Jersey this week show that, Democrats are tone deaf. How do you answer that?
Well, there's nothing tone deaf about advancing a policy that has 60 or 70 or 80% support among the American people, which if you look at what's under the hood of the Build Back Better package, that's what we're talking about. Support for expanding access to health care, the provisions that we have in there to get everybody to preschool or to make child care more affordable. And my favorite thing about this package is that when you tell the American people how we're going to pay for it, you get into that issue of how's this going to be paid for, the support gets even higher, because Americans know as a matter of common sense that it makes no sense for some corporation that makes billions of dollars in profits to pay exactly zero in taxes. Now, don't get us wrong.
That's absolutely a fair point. It's a fair point, Secretary. But Wharton, has a study out right now that says the cost of this is actually close to double the signature amount. They do it in a lot of ways and look at when things phase in and out. It's actually very confusing. But they say that this is not the price it's billed at, that it's far, far more underpaid than the way the administration is selling it. What do you say to that?
So without getting too technical, if you double click on that particular study you're mentioning, I don't think what they modeled is what's actually in the framework that's going forward. And again, I would point to 17 Nobel Prize winning economists talking about how this will help fight inflation. But I really want to mention that tax fairness piece one more time. Let's be clear. Profitable corporations will still be profitable, probably more so now that we'll have good infrastructure. Wealthy people will still be wealthy, but they'll be paying their fair share. It just makes no sense that the wealthiest country in the world, hang on, the biggest economy in the world can't come up with the funds to deliver preschool or childcare, or things that almost any other developed country can take for granted. Right?
No, I get that, Secretary. But what is fair share to you? The very top rate under this plan will be touching about 50% with everything. And I'm just curious, no matter who it hits, that ultimately top rate. What is your definition of fair share? At 50%, are they paying their fair share?
Yes, or closer to it anyway. I mean, look, we're talking about folks who are doing great, who will still be doing great under this tax provision, who are benefiting from an explosion in income and wealth inequality in this country. I mean, if you look at the ratio between what a CEO makes and what an ordinary worker makes compared to what it was, let's say, during the Reagan administration, I mean, that gap has exploded. And I don't think it's because there's a gap in productivity. I think it's got a lot to do with policy and politics. So, as the president often says, it's not about punishing anybody, and wealthy people will still be wealthy, profitable corporations will still be profitable, but when they are paying a more reasonable share, when you no longer see a company making billions of dollars paying zero in taxes, then we have the funds to deliver things that people in pretty much any other developed country can take for granted. And I don't know why Americans should be asked to settle for less.
You mentioned why Americans shouldn't be asked to settle for less. The reality is, you're right, as the plan stands now, corporations, wealthy individuals are going to pick up the cost of this. But it happens at a time that roughly half of the American people pay no federal income tax. Now, some of that might be payroll taxes and the rest, but that this number has grown that big from close to around 20% of the 1950s when we had a much higher top rate. Do you fear that the fact that so many have no federal income tax input on this, that they have no skin in the game, then of course they're going to support something for which they have no fear of paying?
Well, again, I mean, we're talking about folks who are paying income, or they're paying payroll taxes, they're paying sales taxes, they're often paying property taxes. I don't think the problem right now is that working and middle-class Americans have it too easy. I don't think the problem right now is that somebody who works 40, 50, 80 hours a week at minimum wage, that their life is too easy. I think the problem right now is you got a lot of folks with armies of lawyers and lobbyists who figured out ways to pay literally nothing in some cases. Or if you look even at wealthy individuals and you separate, hold on, if you step away from the income tax bit, right? Even on a percentage basis, right? Even on a percentage basis, if you count the true accumulation of wealth and not just what gets booked as income, you got billionaires paying a lower percentage of their wealth or income than school teachers or firefighters, and it's just a common sense fact that that's wrong.
Real quickly, the president looks at the supply chain crisis as COVID and COVID only related, that not for that we wouldn't have it. Do you agree with that?
I would say this. Clearly, a lot of this is driven by COVID. It's supply, it's demand, and it's COVID. Now, when you see, for example, as the president was pointing out, I mean, if a shoe factory in Vietnam closes because of COVID outbreak, right? I mean, that's obviously an impact that happens because of the pandemic. And what we're seeing is those pandemic issues are colliding with infrastructure that hasn't been invested in enough. And we got a chance to work on that long-term problem right now, thanks to this bill. I think we hear the
Sorry to jump on you, Secretary. Thank you very much. Pete Buttigieg. We'll have more after this.